Hello YouTube. This here's a reference photo of my wife and I. Yes, that would be my wife. That would be me 5 years ago. And over to the right is where I'm drawing this. And in this video, what I thought I would do is just a short segment of as I'm working around my eye here that I started from that eye right there. And I'll do this in real time, though I'll cut out a lot of the dull parts, so it may jump around a little bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right to it. Okay, well, I've already started on the eye a little bit here, but until I get a little more of what's around the eye, I can't really get the right tone for the white of the eye and everything itself. I've shaded it down as much as I could, but now I need to get the skin tone going here. There's several ways that I can go about doing this, and I'll explain some of it, and then I'll decide on what I'm going to do. One thing is I can take like a 2H pencil, or maybe not so light. Maybe I'll just go with an HB pencil, for example. And around the eyebrows here, I could just start doing little circular moves with my pencil, just to get some graphite down onto the drawing paper, because I need to get some tone on the skin here, and just doing little circular motion here. You could also do a stroke from the top down like this, as I know some artists like to do. I found that a little too difficult for me to do for any length of time, but the circular works really well. And so I could do this, for example, and you'll notice that I have drawn in my eyebrows. Now, since I know I'm going to be going in somewhat dark with the eyebrows, I went ahead and just started the outline of it, so that as I lay down my base graphite, and then I go to blending, which would be the next step, is taking, for example, this cotton swab here and just kind of blending in that graphite that I just laid down with the HB pencil, for example, that it will not erase or fade out completely the eyebrows, because I want to know exactly where that's going to be, and I want some skin tone underneath before I even lay down my eyebrows. So I make sure that at least it's dark enough so that I can see it. Now you can see I'm just kind of blending in that graphite to get my initial skin tone. And as I do this, you'll notice that the grid lines themselves will dissolve into the blending, and so I don't actually have to erase them all. But that's exactly what would have happened with my eyebrow had I not used a darker pencil. In this case, I used a 9XXB pencil, because that's what I'm going to use to start drawing in my eyebrows here. But you can just use like a 6B or one of the softer pencils, so that you don't lose your initial trace lines and so forth. Now, that's one way that you can start laying down your base. Another way is just simply to get some graphite powder. For example, I have this graphite powder here from Cretacolor. I also have some from Generals. It doesn't really matter, it's personal choice. And I could just dip the Q-tip, the earbud, into the graphite powder and tap some of it off, and then use that. And that's actually a very quick way to go about laying down your base coat here of graphite. Now when I call it a base, it's because this is not necessarily going to be the tone that I'm going to end up with. I'm likely going to go a little darker on the skin to match my reference. But I need to get something down, so I start with one of the harder pencils, in this case the HB, because it gets down into the paper a lot better than a softer pencil, which has a tendency of not going down into the paper fibers. But if you blend it and you blend it well, then you can still make up for that also. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you one way that you can go about starting your skin tone. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab this graphite powder just so that I can demonstrate that as well. And for example, I'm just going to dip that in here. Now it's going to be a little messier because my paper is on an easel slant rather than flat on the table. This works really good, especially if you're laying flat on a table or mostly flat on a table, because you don't have everything trickling down your picture, as you know is a tendency with powders and not so much with pencils. So now here I've dipped the Q-tip into the graphite, and as you can see, you just lay that down like so. And you can keep adding more to get the tone you want, or you can go over the top with pencil. But you can see that's just another way of laying down that tone. Now that I've got that initial base, I want to start getting my eyelashes in here, and I'm using a 9XXB in this case to start my eyebrows. And if I said eyelashes, I don't know if I did or not, forgive me, because I mean eyebrows. But I'm just going to start getting the hairs here going. And it's just, you're just flicking, you know, the little hairs and getting the shape down. Once I'm getting it close to what the reference looks like, there'll be parts of it you won't be actually seeing individual hairs, but that's how I'll draw them in, as if they are individual hairs, and then they'll just kind of blend in after I've done so many of them. This is kind of a softer area here. I'm just going to a little darker shading down here, just to, and this will all be blended. There's really no hair showing here on the reference, so I'm just going to kind of go like that. It's actually quite lighter than the 9XXB in this area here, so I'm going to lay off with my 9XXB in that area. Right now, just stick with where the darker areas are. So it's really dark about right here and about right there, and then it kind of goes softer as it comes out here. So I'm probably going to just lay off here, and I think I'm going to be good here. I don't want to color in like this because, the reference doesn't look like that, and I certainly don't do that with my brows. It's real, and so I want to make sure it doesn't look like it's painted on. Now, I'm going to take a blender, paper blender is fine, kind of smooth this out a little bit so you're not really seeing individual hairs, but then it lightens up as it comes around the corner here of my head, so I want to kind of get that going. Sorry for the camera shake, but it's tied to my table here. I'll try to hold it with one hand and draw with the other. This is kind of a disadvantage when trying to film, videotape your work, I can't give it the same kind of attention I normally would. Just give it, kind of smooth it out, and then it's more shaded here, but then it just smooths out, so I'm going to okay. Now, one of the things I noticed is that I need to actually come a little bit further out. The reference has the hair coming out to here, so I'm just going to get a few more here. Stay true to the photo. And then there's, you can see small little strands here that should be put in there, so it can continue to give that correct appearance that it's going around the corner there. Okay, that looks all good. That looks good. Okay, I like the way that looks. Let's see, there's nothing here. So I think don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to stop right there. Make sure I curve that around. Okay, just work that brow a little bit. Get a little carried away here. You just take your kneading eraser and touch up wherever you feel that you need to lift some of that graphite off. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Then I got a little shading going on under here, so I'm going to just keep using this blender here because it'll just add just enough. And then it comes down to here. Alright. That looks good. Alright. See. Okay, now I got shading right here at the bottom of my eyelid, so I want to get that. Okay, so that would be nice and dark here. Okay, and then as it goes up over the lid, it tends to lighten up a little bit, so I'll make sure that it's darker down in this area, and then it gives it that roundness, but then lightens up as you go towards the center of that. Okay, and that's to give my eyelid more of a rounded look. So you can see that down in this area here, just where the eyelashes would be if I had any really that showed. you're going to be usually darker here. It's more shaded. And then this comes out and over. It's kind of rounded. So you want to lighten up. You want to kind of lighten up that shading as you get to the top of this lid, and make any adjustments as usual with the kneaded eraser. And I will do that right now because there's like more of a highlight here. Get some fresh in here. Okay. And then it'll start to get darker as it goes back down again underneath the eyebrows. And I'll have to reblend a little bit there. Okay. Just making sure I've got this right. Okay. Go back with a clean Q-tip here and just kind of blend that. It's not really that bright, but it will be darker down here and darker up here. That's more blended in, and then it will lighten up. Somewhere up here above my brow, it'll lighten up a little bit, so I can kind of mark that off a little bit as to where that's going to happen. I'll likely go back over it again darker, but meanwhile I'm just trying to keep the difference in shading in mind here, and then I'm going to blend that. See, that's definitely too dark right there compared to the rest of my skin. I don't have blotchy skin because my skin isn't blotchy. At least not that I think. Okay. So that's definitely a start. All right. So we can see it's starting to take shape. But I just want to do these in shorter clips. This one's here already more than 15 minutes, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break up these drawing lessons into pieces, so that well, there'll be more of them, and it's not going to be so long and drawn out that it puts you to sleep. But you can see that I'm already starting. The face is starting to take shape. So what did we take away from this video? Well, when you put in your base tone on your drawing, okay, you can use, like a 2H or an HB, or, depending on how dark you're going to go. But usually I'll use a 2H or an HB to put it down first, and then use the darker pencils to get darker and darker. And that way it gives you a much better skin texture. I will often either just do circular motion to lay down the skin tone, and then use the earbud to blend it, or I will use graphite powder with an earbud and just go ahead and use that and lay that down. And anytime you do that over something like your drawing of the eyebrows or eyes or whatever, and you don't want to lose that line, make sure you draw that in with a pencil that is going to be at least a couple of grades darker than the grade you're using as your base tone, so that it doesn't completely disappear as you are blending with your blenders. So that's a tip as well, so that way you'll know where you're going to put your eyebrows in, or whatever the case may be. Okay, and let's see. And other than that too is when you have areas that are going to be rounded, where you go from shadow to light to shadow, you make sure that you have that gradation and you get those highlights put in there and so forth. I'll still be working more on this as the rest of the face develops because I know this is too light here on the top, but it isn't compared to this tone. But when this gets a little darker, that's going to need to get a little darker as well. So everything is just, you just do it gradually. Everything is gradual. Okay, and I think that's all the pointers for this particular video. I hope you like it. If so, please give me a thumbs up. It encourages me to do a whole lot more. Subscribe. There's a little button down there if you haven't done so already, so you'll be alerted of my next video. And I will see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.